You don't put your hands on a childea. That's what everyone in that cabin felt the second the thud echoed through the plane, that sharp, stunned gasp when they realized the 8-year-old boy who'd just been shot wasn't going to cry or even flinched. Just calmly reached for his book, stood up, and quoted federal law. Not one person, not even the flight crew, could have guessed that 10 minutes later 42 major airports would lock Skyfront Airlines out of their systems, that $890 million would vanish from their ESG-linked accounts, or that the woman really pulling the strings was already watching security footage before that plane ever left the gate. But let me back up a sec, because the way it all unfolded, that's what'll make you rethink who's really got power in the skies. 5 hours earlier, up in Upper Arlington, Ohio, it was just another ordinary morning. Or at least it started that way. Alyssa was tugging a sweatshirt over her scrubs, hustling for her coffee, her mind already on her shift, while her son Emmanuel sat cross-legged on the living room floor with his nose buried in a battered copy of the federal aviation regulations for passengers with disabilities. "Why do you keep reading that book, sweetie?" she asked, almost laughing. He looked up, thumb pressed to a section he'd practically memorized. "Because they break the rules," he said, "and someone has to know. And they do." He said it like he'd said it 100 times before, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. At Columbus International Airport, boarding for Flight 2612 to New York had just started 20 minutes late, everyone a little on edge. Emmanuel clung to his backpack, his eyes calm, his book already opened to page 44. Corners dog-eared, yellow tab sticking out. They found their seats in row 5, Alyssa at the window, Emmanuel on the aisle. Next to him was a girl maybe his age, oxygen tubing looped under her nose, a ventilator humming quietly beneath the seat. Her mom was gently adjusting the straps, whispering something soft when the trouble-walked China blonde flight attendant, hair in a tight bun, name tag reading K. Murphy, clipboard at her side. She glanced at the ventilator, wrinkled her nose, and said, "You'll need to move her to the rear. Medical devices can't block this section." The girl's mom tried to explain, voice trembling. "She needs the aisle for airflow. We submitted documentation 3 days ago." But Murphy cut her off. "This section's for select passengers. It's not safe." The little girl's chest started rising faster, anxiety plain on her face. That's when Emmanuel closed his book and stood up, voice clear but gentle. "You're violating section 380.117. He said. "Passengers with ventilators are protected under the Air Carrier Access Act. You can't force them to move if accommodation was pre-approved." Murphy blinked, thrown off. "I'm sorry." "What?" Emmanuel calmly flipped his book around, showing her the page. "It's HRI subsection B. They're allowed assistive devices and access to airflow if it's documented." A couple passengers glanced over, phones held just low enough to not be obvious. Murphy leaned in, voice low and threatening. "You need to sit down, young man." Emmanuel didn't raise his voice. "I'm just reminding you what's lawful." And that's when she shoved him. It wasn't a big push, but her hand definitely hit his shoulder, and his book hit the floor as his back hit the armrest. People gasped. The little girl burst into tears. Alyssa was up in a heartbeat, voice shaking. "Did you just put your hands on my son?" Murphy snapped back. "Control yourself." Alyssa's hands were trembling. But Emmanuel didn't move at first. He just bent down, picked up his book, and opened it to the same page, then quietly pulled out his phone. 7:25 in D.C. Patricia Reed answered her phone on the second ring, voice steady. Emmanuel, he didn't waste words. She pushed me. I cited 380 to .117. The girl had oxygen. Patricia was silent for a moment, not hesitation, calculation. All right, baby, she said softly. Grandma's got this. Stay seated. Back in the cabin, Murphy tried to pretend nothing had happened, no harm done. She muttered, but people were already whispering. One even lived streaming behind dark glasses. Emmanuel looked so calm, but he'd changed, more centered, more focused. The mother of the disabled girl leaned over and mouthed, "Thank you." Alyssa hugged her son, fingers shaking. Washington, D.C., 7:32 a.m. Patricia sat at her encrypted terminal, logged into the Clear Equity Score Ethics Gateway, bypassed dashboards, typed her override code Skyfer Airlines, ESG tire active. Initiate Clear Equity Strike. She clicked yes, the screen blinked. Are you sure? She hit confirm. Within 90 seconds, 42 airports received non-compliance alerts. $890 million in ESG funds froze, and Skyfront's clearance to board from any federally supported terminal was suspended. News outlets began to pick up the alert before the plane even left the gate. Meanwhile, Emmanuel watched the girl across the aisle smile for the first time as her mom wiped away tears. Alyssa was still watching the flight attendant pace, but Emmanuel wasn't smiling. It's not just about knowing the law, he whispered. It's about making them remember it. The cabin split, some passengers whispering, some filming, most unsure whether to step up or stay silent. Emmanuel knew that silence, the kind where adults pretend nothing's wrong, where wrongness hides behind fake smiles. Alyssa didn't sit jaw clenched, hands shaking, part rage, part fear. She leaned toward Murphy, who now lied louder. That wasn't a shove, he just lost his balance. Do you think I didn't see it? Alyssa snapped. You assaulted my child. Murphy tried. Mom, please lower your voice. Alyssa, voice cracking. Now you care about tone. You silenced a legal correction, and now you want calm. Another attendant, shorter, pixie cut, apologetic, tried to step in. We need to de-escalate. Are you the head attendant? Alyssa demanded. No. Then I want her removed before this plane moves. Emmanuel's eyes stayed on Murphy. The girl with oxygen peeked out. Her mom mouthed, "Thank you." Alyssa tried to steady herself, counting heartbeats like a nurse, but she heard a fake announcement. We've been advised of a brief hold from the tower. Alyssa knew it was a lie. Someone had called it in, and someone in D.C. was already listening. Patricia flagged the incident as priority emergency. By the time she finished her coffee, the FAA Legal and Civil Rights Enforcement had video from for separate live streams her grandson, citing regulation, getting shoved. On board, the murmurs grew louder. Murphy paced by the cockpit, pretending to work. Passengers whispered, "Did you see that?" Kit quoted the law. Flight attendant pushed him. No joke. The girl with oxygen curled into her mom's arms. Then the pixie-cut attendant returned. We're waiting on clarification from ground ops. They want to verify the manifest and something about compliance systems. You mean they want to verify if you just laid hands on a child? Alyssa said. I see now. Someone important is watching. Emmanuel finally spoke. I think Grandma flagged them. Alyssa exhaled. Of course she did. He flipped his book to the page again. Murphy came back, paler now. You'll be moved to a different flight, she said. You're trying to remove us after you shoved my son. Alyssa's voice was steel. We're not going anywhere. That's when the cabin door opened, isn't it? Security, but 3 people in navy jackets, FAA insignia gleaming. The lead officer, calm and direct. We'd like to speak with the crew of them. Murphy and the rest were escorted off. Passengers stayed. Phones everywhere. Videos already racking up views. The FAA officer addressed everyone. The FAA is investigating this flight due to an ethics violation concerning a minor passenger. Heads turned to Emmanuel, just closed his book. Meanwhile, Patricia was already scheduling a airing mandatory passenger ethics certification for all crews on ESG-linked contracts. Inspired by Emmanuel Reed, age 8. By the time Flight 2612 landed, news had exploded clips of Emmanuel standing up with his book, getting shoved, then the industry fallout. Hashtags trended, news anchors debated, teachers played the clip in class. Alyssa murmured, "They just posted it on The View." Emmanuel looked up. "I don't want to be famous. I just wanted her to stop." Skyfront's legal team scrambled, but Patricia's override had triggered mandatory audits across 42 airports, 17 vendors. Every Skyfront staffer linked to the flight now under review. At FAA headquarters, the task force pored over the compliance dashboard, someone muttering, "Most staff aren't even trained in the Air Carrier Access Act." And now we're on the hook. Patricia entered, silent, holding a still frammy manual, book raised. "This is the face of ethics," she said, "and we're going to build around it." In Ohio, Emmanuel's grandfather showed him a viral news clip. "You didn't try to be famous," the old man said. "You stood up for someone else. That's what changes systems." Alyssa, worried, asked if change would actually happen. "It already is," her father answered. Pressure-mounted advocacy groups demanded Skyfront adopt the Passenger Dignity Protocol. Patricia's public statement became the headline. When an 8-year-old understands the law better than the crew, it's not the child who must be corrected, it's the system. And yes, she named her grandson. Skyfront's CEO got summoned by the Transportation Ethics Council, the first test case of the new protocol. Schools played Emmanuel's speech. If an 8-year-old can do that, what's stopping you? In a quiet airport lounge, a compliance officer told Emmanuel, "Because of you, we're rewriting our training materials." He just nodded. "You should add 380 to .117 on the first page." Before long, the Reed Protocol became law. Airlines retrained their crews, and the world, at least, and the ski started changing. But not everyone was happy. Some called him the FAA's moral compass. Others called him Law Boy, but kids everywhere stitched their own stories to "Now I know what to say." Through it all, Emmanuel remained the same. "I just wanted things to be fair," he told Patricia one night. "I didn't want to be a mascot." Patricia hugged him close. "You're not a mascot. You're a mirror. You showed the world what it really looked like." When the final Senate vote passed, when the plaque was unveiled in honor of those who choose justice over silence, Emmanuel didn't need a speech. "I just didn't want it to happen again," he said. "The system is just people who forgot how to care. I think we helped them remember. So let me ask you, What would you have done if that was your child on the plane? Have you ever witnessed injustice and stayed silent? Tell us where you're watching from if you think more airlines need something like clear equity today. And if you believe every voice, no matter how small, deserves to be hardened, forget to share this.